2025 has been an outstanding year for video games, and unsurprisingly, as we edge ever closer towards Halloween, there are plenty of horror titles that are vying for your attention. So with that in mind, I'm Josh from What Culture Gaming, and these are 10 seriously scary 2025 horror games. First up, Kronos: The New Dawn. Bloober Team followed up their excellent Silent Hill 2 remake with 2025's Kronos: The New Dawn, proving their last hit wasn't just a fluke. A time-bending story set in both a far-flung future where Earth has been ruined by a mysterious virus and 1980s Poland at the beginning of the outbreak, Kronos casts you as an operative attempting to discover the origins of the apocalypse. The gameplay mixes the third-person shooting established in the Silent Hill 2 remake with a Dead Space-esque gravity-bending traversal, utilizing the unique sci-fi setting while keeping the focus on accurate shooting and resource management. To heighten the intensity further, the already deadly creatures you're fighting are able to absorb dead enemies to become even stronger as well, adding even more chaos to firefights. Kronos' standout feature is absolutely its atmosphere though. It's most powerful in its quieter moments, stalking darkened corridors and listening out for the wails of mutants in the next room. Though not a scare a minute, there are plenty of effective frights tucked away across the 15-hour experience, and it makes playing with headphones an absolute must. Next up, Labyrinth of the Demon King. Proving that you don't need cutting-edge Unreal Engine 5 graphics to deliver scares, Labyrinth of the Demon King's grimy, retro PS1 style makes for one of the most hauntingly oppressive experiences you can play this year. A first-person hack-and-slasher inspired by Dark Souls and Kingsfield, Labyrinth throws you into a quest for revenge as you explore a winding castle full of secrets and grotesque freaks. There's a surprising amount of depth to the combat and general gameplay that you might expect looking at its intentionally clunky animations as well, and that goes for the enemy design and scares also. This is more than a visual gimmick that gets tired after half an hour. Labyrinth is full of ideas and fresh dangers, with the low poly graphics and limited draw distance forcing your brain to fill in the blanks. The sound design is a highlight as well, with the industrial wails and low-quality screams and sounds giving things an eerie analog edge. It naturally got a little bit lost when talking about bigger budgeted and higher profile games from 2025, but Labyrinth of the Demon King is just as impressive as anything else released this year. Next up, Karma: The Dark World. Now, it's understandable if Karma: The Dark World passed you by, because its name doesn't exactly scream a must-play horror. Dodgy moniker aside though, Karma is the real deal, a first-person walk-and sim that wears its horror influences on its sleeve. Taking huge inspiration from David Lynch, Hideo Kojima, and Orwell's 1984, this game casts you as a detective in a dystopian society who literally invades the minds of suspects to unearth their deepest secrets. This mind-bending plot results in an experience you can never quite trust, with game design and environments that can shift on a dime. It's a beautiful game to look at with a striking art style as well, which aids in the building of this oppressive universe that you're trapped in. There's some compelling puzzles and even a boss fight or two, so it's not a totally passive experience, but the emphasis is definitely on its ambitious story and catalogue of scares. You certainly can't fault it for its ambition, and while it might not reach the highest heights of first-person horror games in recent memory, it more than makes up for it with creativity and memorability. Great stuff. Next up, Lost Records: Bloom and Rage. Alright, I'm already kind of breaking the rules on this list, but Lost Records: Bloom and Rage is worth a spot in this top 10, despite not being as overtly focused on horror as the rest of the entries. Lost Records is very much focused on the realm of young adult horror, with a coming-of-age story about 4 girls who become friends over a summer in the 90s. This being from the developers of Life is Strange, however, there is of course a supernatural twist. As in the present day, the friends reunite for the first time in decades to solve why they can't seem to remember everything that happened to them as kids. So much of the plot is focused on getting to know these characters and dealing with the kind of drama that you'd expect teenage girls to deal with. But there's an undeniable eeriness to it all. You'll catch glimpses of ghostly apparitions as you explore, get the feeling that something isn't quite right with this town, and always be aware of a creeping presence on the periphery of the summer. It all makes for a genuinely effective atmosphere, one that gets right at the heart of the fear and worry of these four characters. Again, it'll definitely be more effective for younger audiences, but it's worth shouting out for just how well it effectively blends the real-world horror of being a teenage girl with a more fantastical video game plot. Next up, The Exit 8. The Exit 8 became something of a cult phenomenon across 2025. It's another game that's not strictly a straightforward horror title. There's no blood and guts, no mutated creatures, and not a zombie in sight. And yet, when it comes to delivering a truly unnerving experience, most straightforward horror games can't even come close to it. The premise for The Exit 8 is simple. The first-person game takes place entirely in one hallway of a subway that repeats every time you go for the exit. All the player has to do is figure out if anything about the hallway has changed when it resets. If you think it has, you continue forward and progress to the next hallway where you'll have to make the same decision. If you think it hasn't, then you have to walk back the way you came. And if you guess wrong, you'll be sent right back to the start of the challenge and have to begin again. The aim is to progress through 8 of these hallways without answering incorrectly. It all sounds simple, but it's the creative ways that the game messes with you that makes it so effective. Some of the changes will be obvious and quite scary, while others are more subtle, with you not even realizing that something is wrong until you spot a little detail that's just out of place. It's a game that gets in your head, makes you a little bit paranoid, and sometimes just likes to drop the psychological stuff altogether and scare you silly. Next up, Bad Cheese. There have been too many "what if we made this kids thing scary" projects over the past few years. Most of them come across as try-hard bores, to be honest, and you might look at Bad Cheese, a first-person horror game that twists the art style of a classic Mickey Mouse cartoon, and think it's just another one-note gimmick project. That would be a mistake, however, as Bad Cheese uses this incongruous animated style to tell a surprisingly complex psychological horror story. You play as a young mouse trapped in a house that wasn't intended to rhyme with a demanding father. The game has you traversing childhood trauma manifesting as grotesque monsters located in surreal hellscapes as you try to figure out what everything means. The horror is surprisingly effective with unnerving themes and cartoon visuals that still manage to be effective at getting under your skin. It's the kind of game that's able to tap into something a little too personal at times, and doesn't outstay its welcome with a short and not so sweet runtime. Next up, Dead Reset. FMV games get a little bit of a bad rep, but we've come a long way since the days of Night Trap, and today it's not uncommon to get quality live-action video games. Enter Wales Interactive, a studio that's already dabbled in this genre, but have delivered their most confident take on it yet with 2025's Dead Reset. Suitably the length of a movie, albeit closer to the Lord of the Rings extended editions than Evil Dead, this game focuses on the story of Cole Mason, a man trapped in a time loop. He's stuck in a freaky underwater lab, and with every death, he's brought right back to the beginning of his nightmare. As an interactive movie, think Netflix's Bandersnatch, but, actually good. You're naturally limited in your options, with the only gameplay coming from choosing what to do in a scene out of a handful of choices. Still, those choices can be very satisfying, and the general quality of the live-action footage is extremely high, featuring detailed gore, strong performances, and a compelling overall story. It's an interactive horror movie, and as such, it's perfect for this list. Next up, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 was ported over to PlayStation in 2025, and while the long-awaited sequel wasn't warmly welcomed when it first launched, it takes on a whole new level of quality when viewed as a straight horror game. Even darker than the first title, this sequel ups the ante with its haunting 360 soundscape, incredibly unsettling creature design, and focus on visceral, bloody set pieces. This game sees Senua on the hunt for slavers, trapped on an island full of cannibalistic cultists and seeking out mythical giants. The latter in particular are gruesomely brought to life in a way that you might not expect, being scarier and stranger than what you expect to see when they're included in similar mythological adaptations. The sequences involving the giants are the game's best, with the developers treating them like a classic horror movie monster, draping them in shadow and building the tension before a big reveal. The cinematic qualities of the first title are put to use here as well to create a nasty, scarier sequel, reveling in the dark themes and insanity of the blood-soaked setting. It might not live up to the original in terms of its storytelling, but Hellblade 2 boasts effective horror in spades, making for a short, snappy descent into hell. Next up, Luto. Luto is maybe the smartest horror game on this list. Though visually it might look like a bunch of other great first-person horror games like PT, Madison, and Visage, Luto is aware of where it falls into this genre and isn't afraid to play with conventions and tropes to make for a fresh experience. Rather than just play things safe, the title has more than a few surprises in store in terms of its structure and story. Surprises, unfortunately for you, that are best left unspoiled before you play it. What I can say, however, is that Luto is shockingly effective. Dark, moody, and constantly subversive, much of the game is spent trying to unlock the secrets of the environment you're trapped in, searching for key items and solving puzzles. Luto nails the sense of creeping dread at the heart of the best games in the genre. A constant fear that has the player scared to move the camera ever so slightly, lest they see something that they wish they hadn't. Make sure you don't miss it. And finally, we have Silent Hill F. Silent Hill F had huge shoes to fill, being the first mainline Silent Hill game in over a decade and the first to be set in Japan. There was understandably a lot of speculation and a lot of caution over the finished product, not least because its developers Neobards Entertainment were yet to produce a certifiable hit. Thankfully, Silent Hill F launched and met those expectations, delivering a well-written and well-considered horror experience. As mentioned, this time the action is set in Japan, in a small town in the 1960s. You play as Hinako, a young schoolgirl and a bit of a misfit, as she and her friends try to escape the creatures that have emerged from the fog. With a melee focus rather than a reliance on guns, Silent Hill F is surprisingly action-orientated, but that doesn't take away from the tension and threat that the series is known for. This is still a game where you spend the majority of the time worried what's behind the next door, searching deadly shifting locations for keys and puzzle items, and hoping to not get absolutely destroyed by a boss fight. The creature design is as good as you'd expect from the franchise, consisting of twisted manifestations of the main character's anxieties and fears. The music and sound design are outstanding as well, but it's the focus on well-drawn characters that makes the game so effective. This is pure psychological horror through and through. So those are my picks for 2025 scariest video games. Let me know in the comments if I've missed any, and if you want more content like this, click one of the videos on screen now.